Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that can't wait to get home to listen to its Robbie Dupree albums. Song. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Agricola. But not that self-absorbed single guy Agricola. I am, of course, talking about Agricola Family Edition from Mayfair Games. In Agricola, I'm just going to call it Agricola because Agricola makes me think of Tacitus's father-in-law. In Agricola from Mayfair Games, 2 to 4 players, 1 to 4 players actually, are going to attempt to build the best farm. What a theme. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you right now, I've not played the original Agricola. I've got a copy of it. I've just never played it. I did play Caverna, which is kind of a spiritual successor to it, and I enjoyed Caverna, but let's go ahead and take a look at this Agricola Family Edition. So, essentially, this is a worker placement game, or as the Germans call it, a worker placement game. And what's going to happen throughout the course of this game is you are going to place your meeples. Now, you start with 2 meeples. You have 2 rooms that are kind of these old wooden rooms. You got 2 meeples that live in these rooms. You can keep 1 animal in there, too. But what you're going to do is over the course of 14 rounds, you're going to be placing your workers on the board to do actions. Now, there's different spots on the board that give you different things. For instance, some places will give you 1 wood, 2 wood, 3 wood. Some will give you clay. Some will give you animals like sheep or boars or cows. So there's different places that just give you things. But then there's some spaces that let you build things. For instance, you can build you can kind of build a field that with 1 action, take a field from the pool, put it on your kind of your farm you're making. And then later you can hit sow, meaning you can put kind of some grain in there and then some extra grain from the pool in there. And then over time that's going to kind of, reap some rewards. You can also go ahead and you can try to build pasture. Pastures are, of course, fields where you can actually put your animals in. You can even at some point build stables that essentially double the number of animals you're allowed to keep in those pastures. Now, this is all important because you want to get all of these different good food stuffs and animals because there is a harvest time. Now, after several number of turns, like I say, it goes to 14 turns, and I can't remember the exact turns. After I think the first one's like at turn 4, and then after like turn 7, and yada, yada, yada. Essentially, you have harvest time. Now, during harvest time, several things are going to happen. So during harvest time, of course, you need to feed the people. First thing you're going to do is you can take some grain off of one of those fields that you've planted. That can help towards it. Now, every person you have costs 2 food in order to feed them. And you can turn different things into food. So one of the buildings you can build as you're moving along is a kitchen that will essentially let you slaughter animals. For instance, I think it's the pig and the sheep can turn into 2 food, which will feed one of your animals, or one of your workers. Or you can do the cow, which I think turns into 3 foodstuffs. There's different ways to get food. There's a spot on the board that just gives you food. There's a spot on the board that gives you food and the first player token, which lets you go first during the next round. So you're trying to make sure you have enough food to feed everybody. If you don't, you have to take a beggar token. If you have a beggar token, it's going to act as -3 points at the end of the game for every beggar token you have. Now, the last thing you do on harvest phase is you also have kind of a breeding phase. So essentially what happens is if you have 2 animals of the same type, 2 sheep, 2 pigs, 2 cows, and they're in the same pasture, they can essentially create a 3rd animal. They just kind of grow naturally. I don't know how that happens or where that mechanic came from. Weird. I don't know how you address it thematically. But anyway, you get a 3rd one. And then, of course, that is the end of the harvest. You move on to the next phase. Now, as I say, throughout the game, as you're moving along these 14 different steps, you're unlocking new buildings you can make. You're unlocking different animals you can get. There's all sorts of things. So you're getting more options as the game progresses, but you're also getting more workers as more people build bigger houses and they build workers. You can also do things like upgrade your house from the wood to the clay, which is important for scoring, and a few other little surprises along the way. Finally, at the end of turn 14, you go ahead and you go to scoring. Now, each person that you have, each worker that you have, is worth 3 points. However, again, if you have any of those beggar tokens, then you lose 3 points for them. Also, all of the tiles that you have laid out in front of you count as a point, except for any wooden rooms. They don't count for anything, but if you've upgraded them to clay rooms, then boom, they're also worth a point as well. Each grain in the field and each animal on the farm and each stable that you have is also worth 1 point. Now, if you have any leftover resources or anything like that, it's not going to do anything for you unless you've got a special building that lets you convert those resources into points at the end of the game. Now, after you've added it all up and you all have the same number of points, if there's a tie, whoever has the most food is going to win the game. If multiple people have the same number of food and the same points, then of course it's a shared victory, and we all love those. But that, in a nutshell, is how you play Agricola Family Edition. So, again, I haven't played the original Agricola. I've got a copy of it. I haven't played it. I played Caverna, which, I liked. I didn't love. And I've said this 100 times. I'm not a huge fan of kind of these Euro games. That's so stupid. I mean, I like Euro games. There's some I really like, but just on the whole, they're not my go-to games. Agricola, one of the reasons I've never played it is it always just looked a little bit too, I don't want to say heavy or complex, because I don't think it is, but it just looked a little too, the theme didn't thrill me, and that level of, I guess, complexity and theme it didn't make me excited to play it. Again, there's a lot of Euro games I liked. I like Russian Railroads, which is pretty heavy Euro, I think, and I got a kick out of that. Love Champions of Midgard. I like that because it has dice rolling in it too. Of course, Lords of Waterdeep I think is a fun game. So there's Euros I definitely do enjoy quite a bit. The good people at Mayfair sent me this Agricola Family Edition, and I thought, well, I'll give it a chance at some point. And the other night, I was just looking at what I had to review, and I thought, I'll give this one a shot. So my friends and I sat down, and there were a lot of, oh, wow, we're playing a farm game, and let's just give it a shot. And you know what you find is, pretty quickly, it gets intense. And you're competing for those resources, you're competing for those spaces, and you're calling each other names because you wanted to do that, and you've got a strategy, and the other guy takes what you got. And this is typical worker placement stuff. Again, I wasn't wild about the theme, but I found the game, nevertheless, quite engaging. I really enjoyed it because it was simple enough and straightforward enough that I didn't feel like there was needless complexity here for the theme, but at the same time, there was enough strategy to keep me engaged. I actually really enjoyed Agricola Family Edition. I felt like it was just a good mix of light. I mean, and I'll tell you this too, it's a fairly short game. I mean, plays about an hour or so. And if this were a 2-hour game, I wouldn't like it. But where it's, about an hour, it was super fun. My friends and I all actually rather enjoyed it. So I'm going to say, go ahead, Discriminating Gamer, buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, no Coke for me, no Pepsi. From now on, I'm just going to drink Agricola.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Canoe sucks.